Shoot ready?
Yeah.
Stand by.
On that first shot, did I impact?
You did.
If you've ever been told no rapid fire at the gun range, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Guys, like and comment. The comment section is the most pivotal part of this channel. So get in there, find out why everyone comes from far and wide to go ahead and comment in there. The biggest supporter of the channel right now is Big Daddy Unlimited. Big Daddy Unlimited is like the Costco of the gun world. You of course have to buy a membership. But once you have that membership, you can get in there and you can check out all these great prices for a variety of products. A lot of my fans have been telling me some very cheap things on there. I haven't checked it out in a couple months here because I've been very busy with military stuff. But I hear the prices are wonderful. So get in there, check it out. The link is right below. If you've been wanting to wear my clothing, you have Beyond Clothing, 10% off with Garand. Or if you click the site link below, it is the best professional gear alongside Crye Precision. Finally, LAX Ammo and Vertex are sick ammunition and bags. Ladies, gentlemen, attack helicopters, welcome to the channel. Don't forget my F-35s out there as well. Want to make sure I hit every sexual orientation. Today we're going to be talking about a workhorse in the military.
I have something for you.
What is it?
It's just a little something.
The SOPMOD Block 2 M4. So I've been wanting to talk about this sort of rifle because a lot of people don't actually know about the Block 2 M4s and what they're used for, and that they're probably one of the more used rifles in SOCOM currently. These are currently used today in a variety of different configurations. Now before we get into this, what is the Block 2? So it's an M4 variant, right? It started as your basic M4 type rifle. Now, there have been a variety of programs that have been around that have had the aim of updating the M4 to make it a more lethal firearm. The SOPMOD program is one of those. What it does is it allows for a variety of different attachments, rails, buttstocks, optics, etc., to make sure that a user can customize a rifle to make sure it fits a variety of different situations and mission sets. That way it can be the most lethal firearm for that given situation. Now currently the Block 2 program is pretty much what's happening right now. Now there are some further developments with the URGI from Geisley, but I haven't seen those widely used as of now. Now of course a lot of guys choose to run their own uppers, but if they don't, they are using something very similar to this, or perhaps another Block 2 variant. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. Let's talk about why this thing is just the absolute workhorse of SOCOM right now. Now let's go ahead and start this off. Now when it comes to clone correctness, I'm going to be very careful and say that this is not clone correct because you know, I'm sure there's certain forge markings and that type of thing that makes something completely and utterly clone correct, but it is fairly close. It was built by a good buddy of mine to be fairly clone correct. Now, of course, we're not going to say 100%. It's not even close or anything like that. And again, depending on what unit you'd be with, you're going to have a variety of different types of accessories and that type of stuff on it. Now, given the kind of leeway that a lot of units have, you'll find that a lot of these rifles look very different. A really good resource on this is Jeffrey Gurwitch, who writes for a variety of different magazines. Now, Jeffrey Gurwitch is former Green Beret, and he has a lot of photos of different types of configurations that have been used in country. So I'll pop a couple of those photos up. Big thanks to Jeff Gurwitch. He's a great guy. I'd highly recommend you read his stuff. The specific articles that he writes are the Competition to Combat crossover. He has parts 1, 2, and 3. The 3 being the latest. He might have a part 4 now. But in any case, go check those out. The heart of the rifle on this Block 2 FSB, which is a front sight base, right? It's an M4 with an extended rail, is the 14.5 SOCOM barrel. Now in this case, mine is pinned and welded, hence it's not clone correct, because a real military one wouldn't be pinned and welded, but given arbitrary NFA laws, mine is pinned and welded. Now the SOCOM profile barrel is very interesting. A lot of the heat that builds up in a rifle when it's firing is about 4 to 6 inches forward of the breech face of the bolt. So that's around right here. Now a lot of barrels are really thin right there. Now the SOCOM barrel is ridiculously thick, THICC. What that does is it helps the barrel not heat up quite as quickly. And because of that, the SOCOM barrel maintains accuracy. In fact, crazy, ridiculous accuracy. There have been a lot of tests with the SOCOM barrel to show that it's generally like 4 to 0.5 MOA more accurate than a non-SOCOM profiled barrel. That's crazy. So a bunch of my buddies have done tests and tons of other people have done tests. They're easy to look up. But the SOCOM barrel is typically, with military ammo, running about 0.9 to 1.0 MOA with a 30 round group. My buddies have shot with match ammo. I know Mr. Guns and Gear has also shot with match ammo in these barrels and has easily gotten 0.5, and I've seen a lot of people getting 0.5 to 0.6 MOA with the 14.5 SOCOM barrel. That is crazy accuracy from a chrome lined, combat workhorse barrel. So the barrel is just phenomenal. The contour of the barrel, for whatever reason, is just the perfect barrel harmonics for this build, and it whips that thing perfect. So that barrel is just phenomenal. I've been a big fan of the 14.5 SOCOM barrels. Now they are heavier, so it takes a little bit more getting used to, but it's definitely a wonderful compromise on a combat fighting rifle. Now the front right here at the very tip, there are a variety of different muzzle devices that you're going to see out there that are typically what you consider clone correct. You have anything from the A2 birdcage flash hider, not as common, but they are a good muzzle device. You also have things like the 4-prong. The 4-prong is typically the correct muzzle device for this type of build. Now you might say to yourself, 4-prong, I thought there was a Surefire 3-prong. And nowadays the 4-prong is more kind of common with Geisley coming out the URGI. You see a lot more of them in the wild. When this was built, they were pretty hard to find. But the 4-prong are a military-specific muzzle device. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that the Surefire 3-prong is actually a better muzzle device that has better flash suppression, and that the tines, the forks that are sticking out, are stronger, making for a better muzzle device. Nonetheless, the 4-prong was specified in the military contract. The military is slow to change, and because of that, we have the 4-prong. Now, of course, nowadays you see others. You also see muzzle devices for the NT4, the Knight's Armament suppressor mount, and perhaps a couple others that I'm not able to name off at this time. Now, this particular muzzle device will mount a Surefire SOCOM RC or RC2. This is the normal RC right here. I've been a big fan of the Surefire suppressors. This one has probably, God knows how many rounds this thing has on it, but this suppressor has been wonderful. So these are typically used. This is not an uncommon setup right here. So, and it does work great with the Surefire suppressor. Okay, so we've talked about that. Now, as far as the performance of the muzzle device, I'm not a huge fan of brakes, and the flash suppression on it is pretty good at nighttime, and then it drives that recoil right back into your shoulder. So that is what you want from a muzzle device. Okay, moving back from there, we do have a carbine length gas system. Now that is, of course, what is not typically used nowadays by a lot of civilian manufacturers. Most guys have moved to like a mid-length gas system. So why the carbine length? Well, this thing did start life as an M4, right, with a SOCOM profile barrel. So there's a lot of arguments about precisely why, and probably what it came down to was there's just a lot of these uppers around here. And with the extended rail from Daniel Defense, which they offered in the Block 2 package, just made for simple retrofitting. Now, there's a lot of argument about that. I'm not going to get too much into the history of it. Again, I'm not, Forgotten Weapons or Small Arms Review or any of those great guys who do great history on these series of rifles, but that's probably something for somebody with more know-how and more knowledge into the inner workings of the SOPMOD program that they could answer those specific questions. All right, now, what makes the Block 2? The Block 2 is, of course, the wrist-to rails. So this is in stark contrast to the original CAC rails. Now, this one is not, I believe, an original CAC rail. I believe that this is one of the many manufacturers that were contracted to make them, so I can't even say that. But the original rails, as you can see, were not free-floating. They came right up and they connected to the front sight base. And they were excellent rail systems. They were very strong, and I'm a big fan of them. Now, that being said, the Daniel Defense wrist-to rails are just absolutely legendary. They're incredibly strong with a phenomenal lockup. In fact, Larry Vickers did a video on Daniel Defense once. He used to be aligned with them pretty closely. He might still be. I'm pretty sure he's still a fan of those rifles. But I think he blew it up and threw it out of a helicopter and shot with a shotgun and all that kind of stuff. And I think at one point it did stop operating, but the rail was just phenomenally strong and took all that abuse and barely bent and all that type of stuff. So the wrist-to is generally known as an absolute workhorse of a rail. Now, heavy, yeah, compared to a lot of modern rails out there, like the BCM, all those type of things, it is definitely a heavy girl. Now, that being said, all that weight comes with a whole lot of strength, so it's kind of a trade-off. Now, if you're running a PEC and light, or especially a PEC where you need to retain zero, this heavy rail is extremely rigid, and that makes it a lot easier to ensure that you're not going to lose zero if you drop the gun, you're worried about the rail bending and all that type of stuff. So when it comes to a fighting rifle, the wrist-to is just a phenomenal rail that definitely fits the bill. Now, up here at the front, we have the CQD sling mount. I don't have it mounted correctly. I just have it looped directly in because I don't like the hook. That isn't the correct way to do it, but that's the way I'm running it. There are, of course, better sling mounting solutions out there, like QDs, in my opinion. But I kind of wanted to keep it a little bit more, clone correct kind of going into this. And again, I say that loosely. I'm sure people are going to slaughter me on this thing being a clone. Now, up here at front, we have a couple accessories. Now, some of these are correct and some of these are not correct. So first off, at the top, we have a PEC 15. These are correct. These are what you're typically going to see on Block 2 rifles, or if not a PEC 15, an LA5, which is essentially a super high-powered version that can burn out retinas. So be careful if you have an LA5. And they, of course, look different just a little bit. But that is correct. Now, coming down here to the light, that's a point for a topic for discussion because typically you're using Insight lights. I'm not a huge fan of the Insight lights, so I didn't choose to mount one. This is a Surefire 600 series on an Arisaka offset mount that butts it right up against the PEC 15, and that's what I prefer. This is all running to a Surefire dual pressure pad right here. I am using the long version, the 9-inch wire version. The 7-inch doesn't quite reach it, so I need the 9-inch in this case. Something more clone correct would be running something like the Insight Light right here with the Insight pressure pad. But again, there are different types of Insight weapon mounted lights that you can use. This is just one of them. But these would be more clone correct, but I am not a fan of these lights, so I've opted not to use them. Now, there are a variety of upgrades that you can do to the Insight to make it more viable, but I just consider the Surefire and many other lights to be superior options out there. Okay, moving back from there, we have the BCM CAG. That is simply a kind of minimalistic type forward hand stop. It's what I prefer on most of my rifles. It lines up the rifle perfectly for me when I'm holding it. I like it. Again, most guys are using some type of CAC broom handle or the Tango down grips. Those are typically clone correct. A lot of guys are using the Magpul angled foregrips. But I'm not a fan of those, and again, I'm going to configure this thing to work for me. Something like this isn't abnormal. Again, a lot of guys have the ability to put different types of accessories on there, but again, that's why we're not going with 100% clone correct, or I'm not even saying clone correct. Okay, moving back from there, the upper receiver is a genuine Colt with a square forging mark. From what I've heard from various friends who are really into the clone game, the keyhole is probably a more the keyhole forging is probably a more correct upper, which is why I don't say 100% clone correct. But again, we do have a military Colt contract, bolt carrier group, and all that type of stuff. Moving up here, we have an EOTech EXPS 3-0. Is this the correct one? No, the correct EOTech would be the Sioux, and it's going to be you know, a different color and all that type of stuff. Generally the same optic, but again, that's why we're not saying 100% clone correct, because there are specific contract EOTechs that have their own markings and that type of stuff. Now, there are a variety of optics that are used, anything from LCANs to ACOGs. Nowadays, I'm even seeing aim points and aim point T2s and that type of thing. So understand there's a lot of variability when it comes to optics. If you read Jeff Gerwich's articles, you'll see a lot of guys running different types of low power variable optics. Again, there's just a lot of variability in what type of optic is put on there right now. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky when it comes to cloning these, because currently these are still used and people are just, you know, slapping EOTech Voodoos on here or just any optics out there. At the back here, I'm running a Knights Armament rear sight. I think they're excellent. You might see that or a variety of different rear sights on there. This is not the stolen United States Marine Corps one. I bought this one from Knights Armament. Okay, charging handle, yeah, that's not clone correct at all. That is a Radian Raptor, but I love the Radian Raptor. It is a phenomenal charging handle, so we're just gonna keep using that there. But typically you're gonna see either some type of normal charging handle, maybe a PRA gas buster, something along those lines. A variety of charging handles are used, especially nowadays. Okay, moving down there to the lower. So unless you want to spend a lot of money and have an auto loader with a third pin, and even then military lowers are a little bit different, it's hard to get it. So I opted for a Colt M4 carbine marked lower, not clone correct, but what a lot of people consider okay, kind of kosher, depending on who you're talking to. The selector switch is not, that is a Radian Talon, and again, I shoot this rifle a lot, and because of that, I opted for that. I enjoyed the 45-degree throw. The grip is from BCM, huge fan of BCM grips. Again, a variety of grips I've seen on there. Typically, with the Block 2s, it's going to be an A2 grip. But seeing that I could modify it to my own means, and a lot of guys do, you see a variety of grips on there. I prefer the BCM, hence the BCM. For fun, I threw a little cage code marking on there, just to make it feel more clone-y for this particular video. Just LARPing at this point, guys. Okay, magazine, Magpul mags. You can see a variety of magazines. The magazines in this video were all brought to you and used from Gun Mag Warehouse, who have been a huge supporter. I use a lot of EPM, the Enhanced Performance magazines, when I was testing out the M855A1. Phenomenally accurate out of this particular barrel. Huge fan there. Now, the trigger. You're going to see a lot of things on what type of triggers were used in these types of rifles, but on this one we have a Geissele SSA. Most likely you're gonna have some type of select fire version from Geissele in these, but of course I don't have a select fire lower. Seeing as that, I just have a SSA. The SSA triggers are phenomenal. We will consider this okay, but definitely not clone correct. So let's go ahead and put our finger on the trigger. Let's go ahead and let's ghost this together. So starting off here, here's our first stage of a two-stage trigger, about 3 millimeters of travel. Crisp 4-pound let off. Here's a reset. That's as far forward as I need to let the hammer go until it is prepared to fire again. Barely any, it's very positive. It's really crisp. Geissele triggers are among my favorite triggers, and Geissele triggers are heavily used among special operations in the military currently, which is awesome. So they have a very light let-off, a very crisp reset, but they still use full power springs and can detonate hard military primers, which is really important when it comes to a trigger, making sure that it's reliable and it can detonate your rounds reliably. So I've been a huge fan of Geissele triggers on almost all of my lowers that are M4s or AR-15s. I do use Geissele triggers, so they come highly recommended. Again, this one, maybe not so much clone correct, but it's getting pretty damn close, and you might see these in certain builds. So that's what we have there. Stock, typically you're gonna have a B5 or an LMT stock on these. Again, you see a variety of stocks, including Magpul CTRs and a whole lot. This is a VCM stock. As you can tell, I'm a huge fan of Bravo Company and their products with their grips and their stocks. Not sponsored by them, I just buy all their stuff, but I love it. So the stock has been heavily used. The sling, again, slings are kind of one of those things, depending on the unit, what type of sling you're going to be issued. I see a lot of Viking Tactics slings. That's what I was issued originally. But this one is a Faro Concepts Slingster. That is one of my favorite slings in the world. That's why I have it. This one is in multicam arid because it looks badass. And looking badass is almost everything. I am running an H2 buffer in here. You can see a variety of buffers, typically running these from H1 to H2. And that is the entirety of the rifle right here. So how does this thing feel when you shoot it? It feels a lot like an M4, but a little bit better because it's heavier. So better than an M4, but at the same time, that's due to a lot of the added weight out front and due to how you configure it and that type of thing. But I have been a huge fan of this rifle just due to the robustness. Now, before we kind of move in, there are other Block 2 rifles. So there are Block 2 rifles without the front sight base where the rail is continuous. That might be more ideal, seeing as the front sight base kind of gets right in the right way of where I want to put my thumb when I'm gripping the rifle. So, you know, the front sight base Block 2 M4 might not be the best one. Another Block 2 firearm that you might be familiar with is a CQBR, otherwise known as the Mark 18. This one has the wrist 2 rail that is of course shorter. This is a 10.3 inch barrel. So this is another one that got extremely popular during the GWAT and that type of thing, maybe falling out of favor a little bit.
What a story, Mark.
In lieu of a longer rifle that provides better ballistics from a lot of ammo out there. But the Mark 18 is still part of that SOPMOD kind of Block 2 program. So anyhow, these are the Block 2 rifles. Great workhorses. I would definitely consider it a superior and a phenomenal military rifle. If you want to build one or clone one, or if you're issued one, I'd love to hear your stories about shooting them. Let me know if you have one. Let's talk more about it. Discuss it in the comments, maybe things that are helpful. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. This rifle looks super sick. But despite all that, if you don't have training, it's not going to matter. So make sure you get training. You have guys like Cogworks, Haley Strategic, Esoteric, the Direct Action Resource Center. Lots of these different guys, Tony Cowden, for example, offer phenomenal courses. Definitely get out there, check it out, get some of that training, get good at what you're doing. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys so much. Take care of yourselves, and I got nothing else for you. Last thing for you guys, be financially responsible. Don't spend all your money on guns. If you live in a terrible house that is in disrepair, but you have a super Gucci gun, you're doing things wrong. Make sure that your living environment is nice. A good living environment can significantly improve your mood, make everything better. So make sure you're taking care of your place and not just your firearms. Take care. Love you guys.